But let's get to Racket Rundown, brought to you by Wilson. Some big ass serving in Basel. I'll just tell you that, with Mpetshi, Perricard, and Ben Shelton playing in the final there. We will get more into the weeds on that. Perricard coming out on top. Jack Draper continuing the successes of his semifinal run at the U.S. Open, winning in Vienna over Karen Khachanov. In this time of the year, I always find it interesting because we know who the dominant figures are with this next generation right now, right? Like, we know Sinner, we know Alcaraz. Lots of times in this run in the fall, you kind of get a preview as to who they might be playing in the quarters, semis. Who are the guys that are going to make runs to World Tour finals next year? And this week, between Basel and Vienna split, it was full of them. Perricard, Shelton, Draper, Fees. I promise you, none of them have seen their career high ranking yet. All guys that will probably be around the top 10 next year, in my humble opinion. Specifically with Perricard, the stat that blew my mind: against Shelton, his average second serve speed was 129 miles an hour. I'm guessing that's higher than my average first serve speed for a lot of years, and I could throw it. Like, it's there comes a time when people change the game, and it's not always who is a Grand Slam champion, right? My mind goes to, Connors comes out with the Wilson T2000. Becker comes in and serves, his way through Wimbledon one year. Rafa comes in, all of a sudden, like, the RPMs change and you see something different. Mpetshi Perricard is the first guy, and Jim Courier has talked about this at length, especially as it pertains to Zverev when he was struggling with his second serve. Is it statistically responsible to just hit 2 first serves based on when you make it, your win percentage? If Mpetshi Perricard just hits 2 first serves, does he win 60% of his second serve points? I think yes. And I was kind of on the fence. I didn't know. I thought it was easy sometimes. But this guy going 145 first serve, 130 second serve, he was hitting second serves against Shelton in the second set breaker, trying to win a tournament. He went at 142. It's a joke. It's different. Even Isner, who, like, you can't teach 7 feet tall, right? So Isner, Karlovic, they changed the game. Nothing felt the same as returning those guys. They have the best 2 serves just by virtue of being tall. I'm not saying they're better than Sampras. I'm not saying they're better than Ivanisevic. I'm not saying they're better than Becker. I'm saying if you gave me one serve in history, I would take John Isner's, because you can't teach 7 feet tall. We're not talking about the rest of the game, which he would tell you is not Sampras. But Perricard, I'm telling you, it was like eye-opening performance this week. Obviously, didn't get broken at all. Won a shitload of tiebreakers. Ben Shelton had a great week. He needed it after dropping the points in Tokyo from his win last year. He was, I think, down at 23. He's going to get back up there. Big things for Ben Shelton next year. We often forget the first time he ever left the country was Australia in what will be 2 years ago, coming in January. He learned, this was on-the-job training by the result of his successes early. He didn't have 2 years in the Challengers. He didn't have this breakthrough. He played at Florida, and then he played on tour. That's kind of it. Played some Challengers and beat Eubanks a bunch that one fall. Big things from Shelton next year. Love what I'm seeing from Jack Draper. Like, rolling people. And a couple of things that is a huge tell is when someone like Draper has the goods, has the weapons, and rolls guys like Demonor, right? And then, like, is beating guys who don't have the weapons, like 2 and 4. That's a statement, right? And then beating Karen Khachanov straight sets in the Vienna final. Great stuff from Draper. Liked what I saw from Arthur Fees. You're starting to see him, play deep at Tokyo, play deep again at Basel. I thought his breakout year was going to be this year. I thought we'd be looking at the top 15, 20 in the rankings, and I thought he would be a participant in that part of the rankings. Not to be this year, but I still like that prediction moving on to next year.
It's Draper and Perricard had big years in 2024. They both won this past weekend. Do you see them as major contenders in 2025? And what does the transition in training / strategy look like from trying to jump in the rankings to now having to stay at the top?
There's such a difference. Perricard went from 200 in the world to 31 currently, and now we're talking about him winning majors. Let's take a second. Draper, a little bit more of a process, was up, then he went down, and now he's kind of back up. Draper, you've heard me on air, and I think he would probably tell you, we saw it a little bit at the U.S. Open also when he had the old vomit Magoo. the difference in training is making sure that your body you have to be prepared at a slam. So to get to this major contention that the question led with, your body, it's not going to go the distance every time. Your body has to be able and be prepared to play 5 hours, 7 times, 14 days. In heat, in weather. Draper sweats like I did. Like, it's just disgusting, right? Like, we were both gross, sweaty individuals. He's going to have to find his stride on what the food looks like, being prepared physically. Does that mean he's training in London? Is there another base where he gets into heat? My personal experience was I would get my body ready doing sprints, lifting, doing the whole thing for a month straight in Austin. Every day, 6 days, 6 days a week, 7-day rest, up at 6 a.m, falling into bed at 9 p.m., rinse, repeat, being perfect with diet. My body's ready. We would stop in Hawaii on the way to Australia to get used to time zones, but I would literally play on this court in Hawaii that was made of lava rocks and would just cook myself for 2 weeks to get used. So all of a sudden I get to Australia and the heat is still very real, but it's not something that I'm feeling for the first time. So that is the leap, right? From, okay, I can not do that stuff and I can make a 4th round of a Grand Slam, maybe. To give myself a chance, you have to tick all those boxes, because I promise you Sinner is, I promise you Alcaraz is, right? Draper is more body. I think Perricard is not going to play those long points. He's not going to get dragged into it. When your average second serve speed is 130, this guy is just a complete, he's just so different. I mean, his is going to be more skill-based, right? Can I make 10% more returns? When I rip, can I rip it to bigger spots? Am I effective if I hit that little flat side swipe backhand that he hits, flat middle? So him is going to be a lot more what works, what doesn't in the actual matches. And I think Draper's is going to be a lot more physical body work, no box left unchecked.
I kind of love this question, though. I'm guessing one reason we're getting it is obviously these are two guys that won titles this past weekend. They're very close in age, and yet can you name me 2 players that are more different? It's kind of a great advertisement for tennis, right? You've got, and also, I mean, these are two, you said it, I mean, these are two guys as close as they are in age at different fate. They're almost different generations, you could make the case, as close as they are in age. I mean, Draper's played he's played his matches. He's been to the semi of the U.S. Open and played Yannick Sinner on a big court in a big match. We all love Perricard. He's still learning how to play tennis, and that is by his own admission. I mean, he even said, I sort of jokingly at Wimbledon called him Tennis Wemby. Like, he's still figuring out his body. He's still like, the bird that's like scratching its way out of the eggshell. I mean, he's still figuring out what this whole thing is about. It's pretty awesome when you can serve 130 miles an hour. I feel like, that probability exercise when people are like, I don't understand. Why don't guys just serve 2 first serves? Why didn't John Isner spend his whole career serving 2 first? This guy the answer, of course, is, by the way, it's not statistically advisable. I mean, it sounds good in theory, but this guy comes pretty close to, not much of a dip from first to second serve when you're doing 130 on your second ball. But no, I mean, I think long range, Perricard has a lot more work to do. I think the game is there. He's a lefty. He's good size. He's really got to work on not just the fitness component, but just kind of organizing a match. He's still a little immature, I think. I think, who knows? I mean, when you're 6'8" and you're still figuring out how to play tennis, and you're going to be seated at the next major, and you can serve 130 miles an hour on a second serve like it's nothing. He's a Wimbledon contender if he doesn't win another point from now until July. But I think Draper is much more advanced at this stage. It's really almost 2 different generations, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, so one of the things I got to give credit where credit's due. Draper's backhand over the course of this year is one of the most improved shots in tennis, right? We would have had this conversation a year ago. I would have called Yahtzee on it, right? I would have said body, the backhand, him being able to basically hit it firmly to big spaces is a revelation, right? The fact that you can't just choose that side and say, okay, he's going to either knock me out or knock himself out, right? Asking the question over and over and over. Now, it's weird because Perricard is still going to lose second round sometimes because he's going to play people who he's not going to go out and break someone 6 times in a match yet, right? So it is that Isner thing where no one wants to play Isner if you're a top guy because you can't break him, but he also might not get to the 4th round matchup where you have to worry about him, right? Where Draper, I think, is more complete. He's going to beat people that he should on a more regular basis. Perricard, when he goes outside, all of a sudden he's got to deal with sun. He's got to deal with wind, which affects his cash grab, right? He is built around the serve. And this is coming from someone who is built around their serve. So lots to see. But listen, one thing that is you can't argue is the fact that we have some really exciting guys. And John, I framed it in Racket Rundown earlier, was I feel like we're getting a preview with Draper, Perricard, but also Shelton, Feast, et cetera, this fall of the guys that might play the top guys, right? The Alcaraz center in like a quarters or a semis in a slam moving forward. Am I ready to make the leap from winning Vienna and winning Basel to winning the French Open? I'm not, but I like the question. These guys are very, very exciting. Both have big weapons. Perricard can just take the racket out of your hand. Like you're almost at the mercy of his strike zone some days. If he's throwing strikes, you're not going to get a lot of hits, but maybe you can grind out a single, maybe walk. But we'll see. This is it's exciting stuff anyways.
Yeah, I mean, that serve that bounced off Sheldon's hand was just, it was crazy.
But you can't, like, right. John, the way I put it is in Racket Rundown is he served 129 on average for a second serve. He's the first guy, to your point that you made without hearing my Racket Rundown, is I think this is the first one where it's a real conversation where it is statistically responsible to hit 2 first serves. Is he going to win 60% of his points if he hits 2 first serves? I mean, he's going to lose like 7% of points if he makes it. And he's serving at a 70+% first serve clip.
You've said this before about other guys. Well,
I thought Jim Courier did a full statistical analysis, but it was based on when Zverev had yips, right? If he's not making second serve, if he's doubling 12 times per match, which he doesn't anymore. He lowered his toss 1.5 feet. He made that adjustment, but someone's going to do it. Like it is going to happen. Like someone's going to pitch and hit in the same game, Ohtani. Like someone's going to do it, right? And I think this is the guy that's going to do it. He's going to change something in what we think the rules are in tennis. He's the guy to do it. Now, there's a lot of work to do on the other parts of his game, but it's going to be fun to watch because he's going to flip some stuff. And I promise you, if you're Alcaraz or Sinner, you'd rather play someone ranked a lot higher who's going to give you a rhythm where you can control what's going on than this Perricard guy where you're at deuce and you don't know if he's going to hit a 140 second serve.
Right.
You can't control that.
Can I you want a quick, I mean, I think some other time we'll do a whole statistical deep dive because it's actually really interesting about why historically it hasn't been advisable to hit 2 first serves, but this guy blows that model out of the water because part of the thinking is the data gets dirty because the returner ends up anticipating 2 first serves and you sort of don't get the changeup, you don't get the curveball. With him, when you're serving 131 up the tee on your second serve, even if you I think he double faults like 6-7% of the time. Even if you double fault 15% of the time, even if his double fault's double, it's still probably the statistically smart play when you can do 131 and put it anywhere. But we interviewed Perricard at Wimbledon. He's a really nice kid. And at one point during the interview, he's talking about roller coasters and he's giggling and he's looking at the wrong camera. And I think he didn't realize the interview was over and he kept going and he kept talking. And then at some point we had to say, we're done. You can leave now. And my point, I mean, he's a really likable guy. This is not some sort of cocky kid who says like, move over, there's a new sheriff in town. Like he's kind of a goofball too and sort of admits all the weaknesses in his game and he needs to get in better shape. And I think there's something to him growing into this. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. That is not by any stretch a finished product. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see, okay, the serve is there. I mean, this is a Wimbledon winning caliber serve today. Will he shore up his movement and his fitness and his volley? I mean, his volleys aren't for a guy that serves that well. You think he'd volley a little better, but it's really fun to watch. And I also just love what a change agent he is. I mean, the conversation about him, it's not going to be like Karlovic. It's not even going to be like Isner. I mean, this guy's going to have a completely different sector unto himself for tennis discussions.
Well, the other thing is like Isner and Karlovic, and then we'll move on to the next question because we're only one question in, is they had massive kickers. Like their second serves there was value in it jumping over your head. He goes big on the second serve because he doesn't have that natural like jump over your face kick, right? So the option is, I'm going to go through you, which is endlessly entertaining for the rest of us.